And so they just casually on round 4 end up with the 8/8. Originally, my plan for this week was to post some serious decks so that if folks were struggling to climb, they had something to go off of. They're not always my favorite videos to do because usually most people are familiar with what's working on the ladder, but I still like to share that kind of content. And also, if I'm being honest, it's a reminder for me that I need to climb because I'm still in the bottom of plat because the call to meme is too strong. Now, that being said, somebody sent me a list that they had seen on Twitter, and I said, that looks amazing. And the person who posted it, all credit to today's list is to GM Ying. They said that they were being successful even in Masters already because they did not meme at the start of the season. But they were having success. I think the list looks like a ton of fun, and so we're just going to dive right in. I do not have a lot of experience with this list. While I am not an expert, I feel like I know what the list is trying to do, so we're going to talk through the list. As always, deck code will be in the video description. Link to Mobalytics will be in the video description, but this is just something that somebody found on Twitter, and they sent it to me because they knew that I'm a sucker for these kinds of lists, and it looks like a lot of fun, so I'm really excited to see how this goes. Today's list is a Mask Mother list, and it's also using the new Cithria, and that's part of the reason I was so excited is because I've been looking for ways to showcase the new cards. And so we get Cithria. Also, Shadow Isles in this set only got one new card, and it was the Wings and the Wave. And so technically this is like all of the new Shadow Isles cards being showcased. But let's go through the list and talk about its game plan. As always, I use time tags. If you just want to jump to the games, you can do that as well, because there are going to be games after this. But we start off with Oblivious Islander. This card is fantastic for a couple of reasons in this list. First and foremost, it makes things like Cithria and Matron cheaper so that you can get to the Cithria summon effect faster. Specifically, I like to use it on Matron because if you can get a Matron down to around 6 or around 7 play, and then the Matron copies a Cithria, even if they're both ephemeral, that's still a really powerful turn that's also boosting whatever your existing board is. And even just like a single Radiant at that point is massive. So I like the Oblivious Islander. It's also worth noting, because this is a list that runs 3 copies of Stalking Shadows, it's not uncommon for Islander to just be reducing the cost of units that were already going to be ephemeral. So if you use Stalking Shadows and you find a Matron, you can just reduce the cost of the ephemeral one because it was already ephemeral to begin with, and so on and so forth. So really like this card because it speeds up your game plan and it's an okay 1-drop. Then we have the Wings and the Wave. This card kind of does double duty in my opinion. One, it can serve as early speed bumps, and it can serve as fodder if you really need a glimpse target, but more specifically for cards like Spirit Leech, etc. But it's also got the ability to serve as a way for you to play it and kill something, and that matters because spoiler alert later on, this deck is running Possession, and one of the coolest things you can do is steal somebody's unit, use it against them, and then just sacrifice it. So the Wings and the Wave kind of does dual duty in that regard. Fading Icon is just a nice early drop that gives you some fodder. Glimpse Beyond, great draw tool. Again, this isn't Thresh and Assus, so your slay count specifically doesn't matter a ton, but you still need fuel for your standard Shadow Isles game plan, right? So having these to feed into things like Glimpse Beyond is important. Mask Mother. This card is better than it looks because of the Fearsome, and there's a lot of decks that don't have many 3 attack power units going right now, and so a lot of times you can sneak in some very good early game damage, even if you're just copying something like Fading Icon. A Mask Mother on a Fading Icon means that, you know, you've jumped up to a 5 attack Fearsome unit very early in the game. But the real trick, the real glory with Mask Mother is that it doesn't keep ephemeral as a tag if it eats an ephemeral unit. So you can play a Darkwater Scourge and then play a Mask Mother on top of it, and you end up with a 7/7 Fearsome lifesteal unit, and it's just always there. Again, the ephemeral does not get copied when Mask Mother eats something. So that's wonderful. Mask Mother is also great again with possession. So you can steal one of their key units and then just Mask Mother it. Mask Mother is also really good for whatever you have copied with Spectral Matron. So because this costs 8 natively, so even without Oblivious Islander, if you go really late into a game, you can do things like play a Matron to copy a Cithria and then play Mask Mother on your Cithria. And then even though this was an ephemeral copy, you basically still get to keep it. So Mask Mother does a lot of really fun, sneaky things in this list. It's also fine to copy a Mask Mother even if it's an option with Stalking Shadows, because even if the other one is ephemeral, again, by giving something fearsome, basically you take their stats, you add +2/+2 and fearsome to it. With Mask Mother, you can push a lot of damage. And again, it's a great way to take advantage of cards like Possession. So Mask Mother, great in this list. Single combat, this is here because we have a fair amount of lifesteal, and we want to use that lifesteal to keep ourselves alive, and the best way to do that is with strikes. So single combat is great with Radiant Guardian. It's great with a Mask Mother after it has eaten a Darkwater Scourge, or there are some rounds where defensively, if you think your opponent's about to attack and they don't take the open attack, you can develop a Darkwater Scourge, and then if they start passing to avoid the Scourge, then you can use a single combat because it's going to die anyway, just to make sure you get the value out of it. So single combat's really good in this list. Stalking Shadows, pretty standard. You draw a bunch of cards. In this case, you're usually trying to find some form of your late game bombs. Make more of them. Darkwater Scourge, great with single combat, great with Mask Mother. Also really good with Callista because it just kills itself. And so if you get a leveled Callista and you get to the point where every time she attacks, she's bringing along a 5/5 lifesteal unit, that's a pretty good time. Strafing Strike. So this one might seem a little bit odd at first because it's basically just a single combat that's more expensive because we're not really running dragons, and you're not wrong. But you don't want to, in most cases, go all the way up to Concerted Strike, because in the later rounds, when you're using all your mana to play a Matron, to play a Cithria, etc., you're not going to have enough mana to then also play a Concerted Strike, but you do have enough to potentially play a Strafing Strike if you've banked spell mana. And so being able to still have another strike not named single combat that is 3 mana or less is actually a big deal. So I know it seems odd, but I think this is actually correct. I think that GM Ying has probably played enough to realize that really all you want is you want to run 5 single combats. And since you can't, this is the next best thing. And it's still 3 mana or less so that you can make use of your spell mana. So even though there's no dragons, this might look weird, I think this is correct. One of Spirit Leech, just because you still want some draw. I understand not going hard with this just because you've already got glimpses and you have shadows, and those are the cheaper options. So while Spirit Leech helps, this being a one of does not surprise me. The 2 of on Possession, I love. I think that there's an awful lot of things that you can do with Possession right now in the current meta. There are Thralls running around, for example. Those are a great thing to steal. And then Mask Mother. There are, dragons, Demacia, Asoul lists are pretty popular. And so being able to take a Screeching Dragon or an Eclipse Dragon and then use it against your opponent, potentially eat it, I think that's a really strong play. I just like that somebody's experimenting with the card, and that was another one of the things that attracted me to this list. 3 copies of Radiant Guardian. It's pretty easy to trigger in this list so that you get the lifesteal, you get the tough. It still amazes me that there was a time when this card was still a 5/5. Like, I miss those days, but really powerful card. You love it with the strikes. It's your best unit to make sure gets the buff from a Cithria. So when you start thinking about some of those explosive plays, if you can get a Radiant going on like round 5 or 6, and then with, Islander or other reductions, you're getting Matron down on 6 or 7 to copy a Cithria to double this. If this goes up to an 8-10 tough lifesteal, there's not many decks that can deal with that. So really powerful unit, just even as a standalone with the Cithria plays, and that's why it's in here. So Spectral Matron, obviously this is for cheating out early versions of Cithria to get those bonuses. And then we run Cithria as the top end finisher. So I like the list. I'm excited to try it out. I do not have a ton of experience. So again, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. All credit goes to GM Ying, who posted this on Twitter, and then somebody sent it to me. But the list looks like a lot of fun. I'm excited to play some games on it. And so we're going to go do that now. Okay, I'm a little curious about how this is going to go, because when I see Zillion and Kindred, I have to assume this is going to be some kind of go hard list. I think in this instance we'll throw back the strikes. I like the Callista. I like the Stalking Shadows. I don't think Cithria is what I wanted to find here in the opener, but if we top deck an Islander, I guess it's not terrible. I think we're just gonna pass. We could develop this into 2 prey to start setting up the Callista play here, but I think in the interim I'd rather wait and see what we get with the Stalking Shadows, because if we find an Islander, we can start making Cithria cheaper. And we do not, so we're just gonna, I guess, keep stacking Cithrias in hand for now. And we're gonna go ahead and take first wave here. Now, if this is a go hard list, they could ping one of these, but if they use a go hard on a 0-1 now, especially when I have 2, so they're not even necessarily shutting something out, I think we're okay with that. They're thinking about something. All right, so here we'll go ahead and develop the Callista. Callista's very nice for a number of reasons, but specifically if you get to the point where one of these have died because of being ephemeral, specifically maybe from like Matron, then a leveled up Callista is bonkers. So there is the other go hard. And so now we just need to find a way to kill a unit.
We can always rely on you to keep us safe.
Let's go ahead and take the Stalking Shadows here. Bit of a tough call, but I think you take the Mask Mother here, because it does a lot of work for us. And then we'll play this. Now, unfortunately, that means we're out of mana. And it was possible they could have had some sort of removal, but since they did not, we're going to go ahead and just take this ephemeral one and use it as kind of the sacrificial lamb, if you will, here, because we want this Callista leveled. Even if this one dies, the fact that we have backup Callistas in hand and the fact that one has leveled means now we just need to figure out a way to get a Cithria down. Also makes her just a little bit harder to kill, and so the vengeance comes out, but again, we got her leveled, and that's the important piece, so we can just go ahead and drop another one. I will say one of the things that I kind of wished this list had room for, would, even if it was like as a one of, would be maybe like a Rekindler, but I understand why not, because again, between Matron and Cithria, those end up being your goals. So a good attack already going for us, and we haven't even dropped a quote-unquote Cithria bomb yet. Though this round it's looking like we might go with the Scourge combo, because that's going to help out our Callista in the future as well. Sets us up for a very nice open attack. Interesting. I mean, again, we have the backup Callista, but it is our last one. But we don't have the strike power, the firepower to interrupt this quite yet. So I think we just have to let this go and stick with our path here. And now... yeah, I think we'll go for it. It is our final Callista, so there's some concern there, but... if we can continue to put pressure on them up until we can start dropping endless copies of Cithria. I think that will help us tremendously. And so this, again, should be giving us a Scourge now, because we went the Masked Mother route. And so Zillion with the Chrono Shift means it will resurrect the next time it dies, but it's only this round. So we can actually make that end up being useless if we use this Strafing Strike to prevent damage here. So we can do something like this. Just because we don't want this Zillion to come back even bigger. This keeps them unable to block our fearsome units, which is kind of a big deal. Kind of hoping for an Islander this round, because then it would mean next round we could hit one of these, but you know, that's a shame. The Hunter means we're gonna lose the Callista. We will get a Radiant for our troubles. And they still, as of the moment anyway, don't have a good answer for the Masked Mother. So this will help. This allows them to draw some cards. They get a blocker. And so we're just going to continue to generate pressure. Now, if they run Black Spear, they'll have an answer for this. Or they could also just have like 3 Vile Beasts, I guess. So there is another Zillion for them. Kind of a shame that we really can't develop this because it's just going to make the O1s at the moment. But I suppose it's fine. We're just going to let the go hard go, so that we can get Cithria #1 down. Obviously, this is still in danger of dying, but it really helps us with regards to these 2 units. I think I want to use our mana to strike this unit, because right now they don't have an answer for the fearsome, or at least try to. We bait out the Rite of Negation, that's fine. Now obviously with Challenger we can still pull this away next round as well. Oh, okay, so they are going to be able to level this Zillion, and we are going to lose the Mask Mother,
Lady Elise, where are you?
which is a bit of a shame. My impatience got the best of me. If we just pass there, we can disrupt all of that, or at least a good chunk of it. But alas, 'tis not to be. Here, I think what we're going to do is we're going to go with the Islander onto our already ephemeral one. Because we can still play both. But it gives us another unit with Challenger. And we get the Surrender because this is 20 that's likely going to connect. So it's a fun first outing. I want to see how it does in some other situations. So let's play again. This ought to be quite the slugfest. I see Talia and Lysandra. So this is very clearly going to be the advance deck. This is the sort of thing that can becomes really scary right around round 5 or 6. So I think we're going to keep an Islander and a Matron in hopes that maybe we can discount this a couple of times, and then also by that time have some other tricks up our sleeve. I mean, ideally you want to find that crazy Cithria play, but we'll start with our Islander. They start with a Thrall, likely into our 2/2 friend. Oh, just straight up time in a bottle, huh? That's fair. We're gonna go ahead with an Icon and see if we can start this a bit more aggressive. We did in fact find our Cithria. And so I think here we're just gonna take this play. Because with 3 mana, we're a bit worried about something like Ice Shard. And if they pass again, we're going to Mask Mother the 3/1 as well, just to dodge Ice Shard. Now, they could just Ice Shard now. All right, so instead they go with the Curator, and so this Frozen Thrall is looking spooky. We are still going to go ahead and do this, because this pushes 5 damage that this can't block, and we're gonna ship the group. And so they can block here, but it's a value trade for us, or they can take this. This blocks more damage, so it makes sense if they do that. Puts it down to 1, so if they were thinking about Ice Shard, like I suspect, that certainly helps them out. And so they just casually on round 4 end up with the 8/8.
Breathe your last.
Think I got something.
So we're gonna see if we can draw some cards. If they had an Ice Shard, they could actually have had a very good play there. But we at least put some damage on the Thrall so that maybe it trades with this Mask Mother when we swing. And that's exactly what we're going to do, is just take the open attack.
Ages pass, yet I remain.
We'll go ahead and develop a Radiant now. If we can get to a point where we have popped even just one Cithria, so we have a sizable board, then maybe we can take advantage of our strikes that we'll eventually draw to kind of keep control. Oh, if we can find a Mask Mother, then we can just take the possession combo. That would be super spicy. Oh, well, they're straight up running Preservationist as well. Okay. Promising Future is frustrating just because now the singular possession will not be helpful enough. We did find a strike though. And so we have to start considering how we want to tackle this. This is ephemeral, but it's going to give us a copy of this. We just stay as is. We bank the spell mana for here, and I think that's probably correct, so we'll pass. There was a consideration that maybe you like Stalking Shadows here, but I think this is probably correct. I mean, this allows us to threaten lethal at the moment, unless they can pop the Thrall and protect it from the strike. Because at the moment, with this having Fearsome, we can pull this as the only blocker. And so we may have survived a round 4 Thrall. This is a good sign so far. Now they might run frostbite effects, for example. There is the new one that also makes the Thrall, but we're gonna go ahead and do this. And hope that they just don't have an answer for the matron. This would be quite the upset in my mind if they got that round 4 Thrall and then we still pull it out. I'm digging this list. I like it. Hey, I like this list. So again, credit is not mine. Credit is GM Ying. That is the person who posted it on Twitter. Somebody sent it to me. I said so earlier in the video, but really enjoying it. I think for the rest of this week, we're going to be trying to post some lists you can climb with. Now, I do need to preface and say that also means that they might be lists you've seen before, but it turns out some of those lists are still pretty good. So I know that's not always the most exciting thing, but I think that for some folks, they might be struggling to climb as they figure out the new meta. And then also for myself, as you can tell, I'm still in the bottom of platinum because the memes, they call to me, and this happens to me every season where I start the season just playing a bunch of ridiculous stuff. And then I have to remind myself that I need to climb. So I think part of this week and my desire to play some more serious lists is just a reminder that I need to at least climb a little bit. I figure if I can hit like the diamond threshold so that I don't have to worry about dropping, then we can play some more memes. But anyway, if you made it this far, this deck I think is actually good enough to maybe climb with. I like what it's doing. And until next time, I love you all, and may you walk on warm sands.